Imagine realizing that the $1 million e-commerce upgrade your team just spent, literally a year building, is fundamentally incompatible with how your biggest clients actually buy from you.
Yeah, that is definitely the nightmare scenario keeping IT directors awake at night.
Totally. So welcome to today's deep dive. It's May 26, 2026, and we are tackling the often painful, heavily buzzword-filled swamp of replatforming a B2B business.
Because the stakes in this arena are just massive. I mean, choosing the wrong foundational technology, it doesn't just result in a clunky website for your buyers.
Right.
It can completely bottleneck your entire sales operation, frustrate your best accounts, and inflate your operating costs for years to come.
Which is exactly why today's mission is to cut through all that fluff. We are taking a really comprehensive, highly detailed guide on B2B on Shopify Plus, and we're distilling it down to the reality on the ground. We're going to look at what is genuinely native to the platform right now in 2026, where it can actually replace those heavy legacy ERP-era stacks like Adobe Commerce or NetSuite and, the very real gaps that still exist. Plus, how much migration like this actually costs.
Yeah, the real numbers.
Exactly. So, okay, let's unpack this. Because whether you're a replatforming team lead, an insanely curious developer, or just someone trying to catch up on modern e-commerce architecture, this deep dive is going to give you the exact mental models you need without the information overload.
That concept of a mental model, I think that is the perfect place to start, because before looking at any laundry list of features, you have to fundamentally understand how Shopify built this.
Yeah.
Because it completely breaks from traditional B2B architecture.
It really does. The old way of thinking always felt so segmented. You had your shiny, fast consumer store on one side, and then a completely separate, usually very clunky wholesale portal hidden behind a password wall on the other.
Right, two different worlds entirely.
Yeah, completely disconnected.
And maintaining those two worlds meant, maintaining two different code bases. You're syncing inventory twice, running two different promotional engines. It's a mess. So the single most useful frame for understanding B2B on Shopify Plus is knowing that it is not a separate store.
Okay.
It's not a separate login portal. It's what the industry calls customer graph commerce.
Wait, let me make sure I'm wrapping my head around that. Customer graph commerce. How does that actually function in practice?
So everything hangs off a strict three-level hierarchy. At the very top, you have the company.
Okay.
That is the legal contracting entity you're doing business with. Directly beneath the company, you have locations.
Like the physical offices.
Exactly. The physical ship-to and bill-to addresses. And finally, beneath locations, you have the buyers, the actual human beings typing on keyboards and logging in.
So if I'm a buyer logging into the site, the prices, the payment terms, the tax rules, those aren't tied to me individually or to my specific email address.
No, not at all. They bind exclusively to the company and location levels.
Oh.
Yeah, think of a massive hardware store chain with, say, 40 regional branches. They're one company with 40 locations. The negotiated pricing, the tax exemptions, the credit limits, all of those rules are anchored to that specific company location pair.
Right.
So the individual buyer simply inherits those rules the moment their email is authenticated.
I love this. It's essentially like a master key system in a massive corporate building.
Oh, that's a good way to put it.
Right. Like the building itself, the storefront, the product pages, the navigation, it's exactly the same for everyone who walks through the front doors.
Exactly.
But the key you hold, which is your company profile, it dynamically changes which rooms or catalogs you can enter. And it magically rewrites the prices you see on the tags inside those rooms.
What's fascinating here is why this mental shift is so critical for teams migrating off older systems. Because they often waste weeks during their initial project scoping asking, where do I configure the B2B store?
Oh, they're looking for a dashboard that doesn't exist.
Exactly. They are hunting for a separate backend. The real power here is having one single unified code base and one central inventory pool that simply reinterprets itself on the fly based on whose key just unlocked the door.
That is a massive paradigm shift.
Yeah.
But now that we have that foundational architecture established, what kind of house is actually built on top of it? Workflows function perfectly out of the box right now. And where do the cracks start to show?
Well, the native feature set has grown significantly to handle the bulk of standard B2B friction. Out of the box, you have those company-specific catalogs and price lists.
Nice.
You have native net payment terms, meaning you can let a verified company buy today and pay 30 or 60 days later without using a credit card.
Huge.
Right. Buyers can input their internal purchase order numbers directly at checkout. You also have per-company tax exemptions and draft orders, which sales reps use as a really highly effective, lightweight quoting system.
Okay, that covers a lot of ground. But let's look at the limitations because, no platform does everything.
Right.
There are 5 specific gaps outlined in our sources. And I actually want to push back on this a bit.
Okay, go for it.
The gaps are multi-level approvals, hard credit limit enforcement, native EDI or punch-out integrations, complex contract pricing with future dates and escalators, and, quote, redlining.
Yep.
If I am the IT director at a $100 million enterprise, and I hear that Shopify can't natively do multi-level approvals or punch-out, my instinct is just to walk away. Are these gaps absolute deal breakers?
Well, they are deal breakers if you don't understand your own buyer profile, but let's clarify what those gaps actually mean in practice. Take punch-out integrations, for example.
Okay.
A massive buyer, let's say a national hospital network, might require their purchasing managers to do all their shopping inside their own internal procurement software like Ariba or Coupa.
Right.
So the manager clicks a button in Ariba, it punches out to your Shopify store, they fill their cart, and instead of checking out, that cart data is pushed right back into Ariba for a vice president to approve.
Wow. That is a highly complex, multi-system workflow.
It is. And
Yeah.
Shopify Plus B2B is not designed to handle that natively. It's perfectly tuned for the mid-market sweet spot, which is roughly $2 million to $50 million in B2B gross merchandise value.
Okay, so that middle tier.
Exactly. Because in that tier, your primary operational bottleneck is usually just the simple buyer-to-rep workflow. You're just trying to get routine manual orders processed faster without your sales team typing them into a system by hand.
So if the sweet spot is 2 to 50 million, it sounds like this is, frankly, massive overkill for a smaller mom-and-pop wholesale business. They'd be paying standard Shopify Plus fees starting around, what, $2,300 a month, just for the privilege of having a fancy customer graph?
Oh, for a sub-2 million business, it is absolutely overkill. At that scale, you should just stay on a standard Shopify Advanced plan and bolt on a third-party wholesale app.
Makes sense.
And on the other end of the spectrum, if you are that $100 million enterprise deeply reliant on EDI electronic data interchange and heavy Ariba punch-outs, those gaps dictate your reality. You will require a specialized system integrator and a serious budget for middleware to bridge Shopify and your heavy back-end ERP systems. You cannot just flip a switch.
It's really all about entering the project with your eyes wide open. These gaps don't automatically disqualify the platform, but they definitely demand you allocate a realistic budget for middleware before you ever sign the contract.
Precisely.
But what about the companies sitting right in the middle, say a $20 million manufacturer? If they encounter a workflow gap, how do they solve it without just abandoning Shopify or building a completely custom platform from scratch?
The answer lies in a technical feature that most migrating teams completely underestimate, which is Shopify functions.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because you look at the technical breakdown, and Shopify functions aren't just a minor developer tool. They're positioned as the absolute secret weapon for mid-market merchants.
They really are the bridge over those functional gaps. Functions are basically how merchants inject custom logic to change pricing, delivery options, and payment methods at runtime without having to own, host, or maintain a custom checkout code base.
That's huge.
It is. There are 4 key functions handling the heavy lifting here. First, cart transforms. This allows you to write unique, buyer-specific pricing logic, like dynamic tiered discounts based on the total weight of the cart.
Okay, got it.
Second, delivery customization.
Wait, so if a buyer is purchasing on a net 60 payment term, you could use a delivery function to completely hide the standard home delivery option, forcing them to select a commercial freight carrier.
Precisely that. It's that granular. The third is payment customization. You can completely gate specific payment gateways. So if a buyer has a history of late payments, the function runs in milliseconds and hides the invoice option, forcing them to use a credit card upfront.
Oh, that's smart.
Yeah. And fourth, discount functions, which allow you to scope complex promotions to highly specific buyer segments without colliding with your established catalog price lists.
Going back to our building analogy from earlier, if the customer graph is the master key that lets you into the room, Shopify functions are the They're like having an invisible lightning-fast bouncer standing right at the checkout register.
I love the bouncer analogy.
Right. And this bouncer instantly rewrites the rules of the store based on your company ID badge. Like, oh, you're from company X. You don't get to use a credit card today. Oh, you're from company Y. You get free freight shipping. And the bouncer applies all these rules without ever slowing down the line.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this invisible bouncer is the exact architectural difference that separates Shopify Plus from legacy systems like Adobe Commerce.
How so?
Because these functions execute server-side, meaning they run on Shopify's massive global infrastructure rather than in the user's web browser. The logic is bulletproof and perfectly consistent.
No.
Whether the buyer is on your main website or using a custom headless front end, or even if your sales rep is standing in a warehouse ringing them up on an iPad, the rules apply instantly. What historically took an expensive, brittle, custom module build on Adobe now just takes a single lightweight function on Shopify.
Which brings up an unavoidable topic, the money.
Yes, the money.
If Shopify functions are replacing massive custom code bases, the logical assumption is that the price tag must be dramatically lower. Does the financial modeling actually back that up? Let's break down the total cost of ownership over a typical 3-year window.
The financial model is quite revealing, actually. For a mid-market company doing roughly $5 million in B2B volume, the 3-year total cost of ownership for Shopify Plus B2B lands between roughly $190,000 and $380,000.
Okay.
And that encompasses the platform fees, the initial implementation agency costs, custom development for a few of those functions we talked about, and the necessary third-party app subscriptions.
And how does that stack up against the legacy competitors?
It sits right on par with BigCommerce B2B edition. But the stark contrast is with Adobe Commerce. At that exact same $5 million volume scale, Adobe Commerce ranges from $460,000 to over $1 million across 3 years.
Over $1 million. Wait, where is that massive disparity coming from?
It really comes down to the burden of infrastructure. With Adobe, you aren't just paying a software license. You are paying for heavy custom development to build things Shopify handles natively.
Right.
But more importantly, you are paying for your own cloud hosting infrastructure, and you are paying an agency ongoing retainers to manually apply security patches and version upgrades. With Shopify, all of that infrastructure maintenance is just absorbed into the platform fee.
The financial case is definitely compelling.
Yeah.
But, I mean, a cheap platform is totally useless if the migration destroys your business operations.
Oh, absolutely.
And looking at the sources, there are 5 phases to this kind of migration. Discover, shape the customer graph, extract lists, parallel run, and cutover. I really want to zero in on phase 2, shaping the customer graph.
Yeah.
Because if you've ever tried to map an old ERP to a new storefront, you know this is a total minefield.
Mm-hmm.
If a company has a massive, messy, 4-level hierarchy built up over 15 years in NetSuite, say, region, branch, department, and buyer, how do they force that into Shopify's rigid 2-level model of just company and location?
The hard truth is they have to collapse it.
They just collapse it.
Yeah, you cannot directly map a 4-level hierarchy into a 2-level system. Hierarchies deeper than 2 levels must be deliberately simplified before you ever import a single row of data.
But how does a business survive losing that complexity? If a national plumbing supplier desperately needs to know which specific department is placing the order, how do they track that if Shopify only gives them company and location?
So you capture that lost metadata using meta fields and tags.
Okay.
Instead of the department being a structural level in the architecture that dictates complex purchasing rules, it becomes a descriptive tag attached to the buyer's profile or the order itself.
Oh, I see.
So the business logic, the pricing and payment terms, stays locked to the location. But the reporting data, the knowledge that, Sarah from the Texas branch's accounting department placed this order, that is preserved through custom fields.
Right.
But you have to design this workaround up front. You absolutely cannot discover this mismatch as a surprise during user acceptance testing.
That makes a lot of sense. You aren't deleting the data. You are just changing how it's categorized.
Exactly.
And what about the parallel run phase? The idea of running Shopify right alongside the legacy stack for 4 to 8 weeks? That sounds exhausting.
It does, but the parallel run is often misunderstood. Its primary purpose is not to prove that Shopify's checkout works. We know it works.
Right.
Its true purpose is to act as a stress test to surface all the weird, undocumented legacy integrations that your IT team built 5 years ago and completely forgot about.
Oh, right, the ghosts in the machine.
Exactly. You run real orders through both systems, specifically to find the silent API calls and custom scripts that break, ensuring they don't blow up your actual cutover day.
That is incredibly practical. So let's assume a team navigates all of this perfectly. They collapse the hierarchy, they survive the parallel run, they launch a beautiful site.
Right.
If their veteran sales reps and their stubborn buyers simply refuse to log in and use it, they have just built an immensely expensive digital paperweight. How do you get human beings to actually change their habits?
Operationally, it starts with deciding what kind of storefront they are logging into. You have to choose between a single store or an expansion store.
Okay, what's the difference?
If your B2B product catalog overlaps heavily with your consumer catalog, you keep them on a single store to unify your inventory and admin work. You just use conditional coding to only display wholesale pricing in net terms when a verified buyer logs in.
Okay, and when would a company pay for a totally separate expansion store?
When the two audiences just cannot mix,
Yeah.
like if your wholesale buyers require a dense spreadsheet-style ordering portal with zero marketing fluff,
Oh, sure.
or if your B2B pricing catalogs absolutely must be shielded from Google's search index so regular retail shoppers never see your wholesale margins. In those cases, you spin up a dedicated expansion store.
Okay, so the environment is built correctly. When a business gets this right, what kind of return are they actually seeing?
The operational key performance indicators are striking. When adopted correctly, reorder rates typically jump 15 to 40% within 2 quarters.
Wow.
Yeah, because buyers can finally self-serve at 10 p.m. on a Sunday. And consequently, the time a sales rep spends processing a single order drops by 40 to 60%.
That is massive.
And manual entry errors, which cause massive downstream headaches with returns and accounts receivable, those plummet by 60 to 80%.
Those numbers fundamentally change a company's bottom line.
Yeah.
But you just used the magic word, adopted.
Yes.
How do you get a buyer who has been happily emailing a messy PDF order to their favorite sales rep for 20 years to suddenly adopt a web portal?
The onboarding strategy is the single point of failure here. The golden rule of B2B replatforming is this: do not ask your buyers to self-register.
Wait, really? Don't send them a link to fill out a blank account form.
Never. You preload their company profiles from your ERP before the site even launches. And crucially, you populate their new Shopify account with 6 to 12 months of their historical order data.
Oh, that's brilliant.
Right. Then you send them a magic login link. When they click it, they instantly see their past orders and can reorder their standard supplies with literally one click.
Okay, that removes all the friction.
Exactly. And to guarantee adoption, you have your sales reps call their key accounts and actually place the first few online orders alongside them, walking them through the new portal live on the phone.
So what does this all mean? It means the technology is actually the easiest part of the equation.
Pretty much.
The monumental challenge is human change management. You are literally holding the buyer's hand to prove to them that the new tool makes their workday shorter.
And this raises a really important question for executive leadership. Merchants who just launch a new platform with a mass email and hope their buyers will figure it out, they usually see abysmal adoption rates around 20 to 30% after 3 months.
Likes.
But merchants who enforce this disciplined, high-touch onboarding playbook, they consistently hit 60 to 80% adoption. So the question is, how much of your replatforming budget are you dedicating strictly to human training versus just the software licensing?
Yeah, that human element is the ultimate hidden cost.
Yeah.
So let's summarize the landscape we've mapped out today.
Let's do it.
Evaluating Shopify plus B2B effectively comes down to intimately knowing your gap list before you ever sign a contract. If you can clearly articulate the workflows your buyers demand, like net terms, gated catalogs, and company-specific pricing logic, the platform handles it natively, and the cost savings usually pay for the project within a year.
Exactly.
But if your operational bottlenecks involve complex punch-out integrations with systems like Ariba or multi-round, quote, negotiations, you must prepare for significant integration costs and middleware.
Because the software platform is merely the foundation. The ultimate success of the project is entirely dependent on how intelligently you close those functional gaps with tools like Shopify Functions, and how aggressively you manage the behavioral transition for your sales team and your customers.
Which brings me to a final thought I want to leave you with. We discussed those impressive KPIs, specifically how a properly adopted portal reduces a sales rep's manual order entry time by up to 60%.
Right.
The assumption is that those freed up hours are redeployed into basket expansion and deep consulting, not just, cutting headcount. But consider what that means for the profile of a traditional B2B sales rep over the next 5 years.
It's a huge shift.
If their primary value to the organization is no longer just deciphering purchase orders and keying data into a terminal, how will compensation structures have to adapt? How will hiring practices need to shift to reward strategic, relationship-driven consulting over sheer transaction volume?
That is the million-dollar question.
Because when the building's master key system is completely automated, you no longer need someone standing at the door checking IDs. You need someone who can convince the client they need to rent a much larger room. Something for you to chew on as the lines between software and sales continue to blur. Until next time.